Hey guys, my name is Jason with Mount Baker Mining and Metals, and on today's video I'm in the very southern part of Spain at some old Roman ruins here behind me. And you might be asking yourself, why is he in southern Spain looking at Roman ruins? I thought this was a mining channel. Well, you're right, but what I'm on the hunt for today is Roman silver. So let's go check this out, and then later in the video we'll go hunt for some Roman silver mines. Here's kind of a shot looking down where the city was. It's right on the water.
Oh my God.
There's a lot of trade with Africa, which I don't know if you can see is right there in the clouds. I mean, I can see Africa from here. One of the main industries here was tuna fishing, and they had huge docks right down here on the beach where they would fish for tuna and clean them and then trade salted fish. There's a huge, this little set of ruins right down here is a salt factory or a fish salting factory. So to give you a real quick overview background on the history of southern Spain, it was pretty much dominated by the Romans starting about 200 BC all the way up to about 400 or 500 AD when the Roman Empire kind of fell apart. And then starting about 800 AD, the Moors came up from Africa and they inhabited the southern peninsula for probably 700 years or so, 750 years. And finally in the 1550s, the Spanish came down and they kicked them out of, I think Granada was the last holdout that they had. Kicked them out of Granada in about 1550, and the Spanish have had southern Spain ever since. Here's the aqueduct where they brought fresh water into the city. The Romans were known for being amazing engineers and builders, and they brought water from tens of miles away from here up in the mountains, right down into their city. So we're about to enter into the walls here. This was the outer wall to the city. And these must have been the gates. The wall continued up that way. And every Roman town had a theater. So right here behind me is their theater. And this town, Bello Claudia, was destroyed in about 250 AD when a giant earthquake knocked over most of the town, but the theater stayed intact, mostly. And it was founded about 250 BC, so it had about a 500-year run. Well, we're at a little bit different spot here, and right up behind me, all this water is coming out of a spring just up the hill. And this was a Roman bath. They made this about 2,200 years ago. And Julius Caesar actually wanted to get these built so he could come and bathe, and he had some condition that he wanted to try and heal with the sulfur and iron waters from these baths. But I'm interested to be here because it's really, really strong sulfur smell. And that usually means when you have strong sulfur and strong iron, you're gonna have minerals coming up from deep underground. This is probably a hydrothermal vent, and like I say, it's very, very strong rotten egg smell. So let's go up and check out the baths and see what we can find. Well, the baths are just behind me on this white wall, and there's a bunch of people in there bathing, so I didn't want to take a bunch of videos of tourists bathing. But here's where the water outflows, and right inside that white wall is the spring, and you can see there's quite a bit of water coming out of there. But it is extremely, extremely strong sulfur smell in the baths. Holy smokes. Takes your breath almost. So we're going to walk up the limestone canyon here and see what else we can find. Well, we found this little outcrop behind me. We've walked up the canyon a little bit. And this is beds of limestone with mudstone in between. So I'll turn the camera around and we can take a look at what we got here. And then I'll show you some views up the canyon. So these cliffs, these limestone cliffs, are made up of small beds of alternating limestone and then mudstone, and it's just layer after layer after layer after layer of this stuff. And at one time this was all deposited probably in a real shallow sea, and for a long time it was fairly quiet and it laid down these beds of limestone. And then you may have had, you know, a big flood or a big storm, and it would lay down these beds of mudstone from silt deposited probably off the mainland. But you have some higher quality limestone in here. That's a real nice piece. And then look at the beds of mudstone on top. That's real thick. So, and I don't know if these were, you know, one season or 200 years or how long, but I'll show you a shot here in a minute up the canyon. Actually, I think I can get it from here. So each one of those beds is maybe varying from ½ an inch up to 2 or 3 inches. And then you look over here and look at the cliffs it makes up. So there may be millions of years worth of deposition here. And it was all deposited flat, you know, in the ocean. And then as these mountains got uplifted, all these beds tilted. They're tilting maybe 20 degrees, 25 degrees to the south, more or less. It hasn't undergone any metamorphosis hardly at all. There's no folds, there's no pinched beds or boudinage or anything like that. It's mostly just beds of flat limestone and mudstone. So anyway, that's the geologic environment we're working with. Next stop, the Roman silver mines.
Go left on the roundabout, second exit, Calle Guadalquivir.
My trusty navigator getting me up to the silver mine here. Where we're going. Driving these Spanish roads is a little bit of a trick. We're making do, I think. Stay on your side of the road there, buddy. My British GPS lady is keeping me on the right road here, so let's make our way up to the silver mines. Well, we're coming up to our spot. I think the mine's just on the other side of this little hill here, but you can see all the fire just cooked off all these hillsides up here. I think it ran all the way to the crest of these mountains and probably back down the other side. But looks out now. But it'll be interesting to see if the fire, you know, when you have a fire come through, it burns off all the vegetation, all the underbrush. And maybe we'll be able to see a few things that have been covered up for a long time. We'll just have to get up there and see. Okay guys, well, we made it up to our first little ruined building here. And a little bit I know about these silver mines is they were started back in the Roman times, so over 2,000 years ago, but they've been worked periodically throughout history. So I think this first little building here we have is probably somewhere in the last 50 to 100 years. But I just got to the site here, so let's go take a look around, explore what we can. But you can see it's all been just cooked off by the fire all over the place. There's a little bit of green around the road, but all up the hill behind me. That's all backlit, so you can't see anything, but there you go. So we'll see what I can get into today, how dirty I get. I am terribly ill-prepared. Let me show you. Here's my footwear for this adventure. My adventure sandals, let's call them. I got some shorts going on, a t-shirt. I have a little tiny hammer, and we're gonna go mine exploring in Spain. So I just came around the back side of that building, and here's another big, huge foundation. I don't know, it's got 3 or 4 little ports there. Maybe this was the mill building. There's a set of stairs up there going up to another set of old buildings. And a lot of times they would build these mills on the side of the hill so you could dump the ore in there and it just work its way down, and then you'd get the tailings off the bottom, and the silver or gold or whatever they were mining would come out the bottom. They've got some sort of round circular tank here. I don't know if this was maybe some part of the processing. And then there's a little ravine down here that, you know, in the States, most of the mines just dump their tailings off in the ravine and they washed away over time. Here's that building we saw coming up. Let's see if we can get a little shot in here. There's a bunch of cool old rockery stuff, masonry stuff. Everything here has got nasty spikes on it. But, you know, a lot of these old buildings just waste away, whether it's in Spain or the United States. Let's see if we can get up here and take a look at this. I don't know what I'm going to call the mill building. See if I can get up those stairs. Well, we're up above now, and these are those four little, three or four, I guess, across there. Little ports. And I don't know, could that be ore? Maybe. I'm not quite sure what we have going on here. Big foundation works down below. And up here, this this looks more like a little castle than a mining building, but let's take a look up here. And we're just on this adventure together. I haven't scoped any of this stuff out, so we're just seeing what we can find. I don't know if this was maybe an old portal at one time. And it has since been concreted up. I don't know. What do you think? There's a hole up above there. Maybe they were dropping ore down into this thing and bringing it out through their process. I don't know. Let's go up these stairs over here. Well, these go up. I won't make you watch while I climb them, but we'll see what happens up there at the top of the stairs. Well, I'm halfway up the stairs. There's some more up behind me. But I'm looking right down. I'm right above where that little archway portal thing was. And this looks like just a huge hopper that they would dump raw ore in. And then that little hole I showed you at the bottom there, they'd probably drop ore down into some sort of ore cart or something. Right over here is down where we were. That portal thing is right here, and they would bring the ore out, I'm assuming, into some crushers down there, and then through whatever process they were using and out into the wash for the tailings down there. Here's another little set of stairs we're going up. And look at this cool little doorway. Man, leave it up to the Spanish to make their mines cool little castles. But we've got another one of these things here. I'm wondering, can I get through here without getting poked? Ow. So here's another one of these things. It says archways. I thought it was a portal down below. It's got a hole back up in there. So this might be another big, huge ore bin. Let's go up these cute little stairs over here and see what we can find. I think I can fit through here. Oh yeah, just barely. Yeah, and here's another one, just a big sloping ore bin. So this is the second one up above. Now that we're up a little bit, we can get kind of a view of the valley. There's an old ruined building there. I see some piles of rock out over this way that look suspiciously like prospect pits. But looking around in the hillsides, I don't see any other big mine dumps or anything. So I don't know if this was the only one or what. But turning around, my guess would be that this was the main portal back here somewhere. Looks like it's been excavated around. Sorry, the light's terrible. Let me get over here a little bit. But it looks like it's been kind of excavated out of the hillside. They probably had a main portal going back here. They'd bring their ore carts out and dump them right in the ore bin. again, that's my guess. I tried to find some historical stuff on this mine, and I don't even know the name of it, and I don't speak or read Spanish very well. But here's some big ore dumps or dump piles. There's one up there. Let's go over there and see if we can find some portals. Coming onto this big dump here, and I see a portal right over there. And it looks like maybe an open cut running right up the hillside here. But these are pretty good sized dumps. It looks like the waste rock here is marble, and that's real common for these skarn deposits. Cerro Gordo down in California, I visited a couple times. It's got real similar rock as its host. But we'll see. I'll get my hammer out. These dark streaks here in this marble are kind of what's interesting me here at the beginning. Looks like maybe some weathered sulfides. But we'll get out here and see what we can see as far as underground workings. All right, well, here's our first portal. And look, they cribbed up here with a wall, a masonry wall, to hold this back up. Ooh, flies? Bees? Bees. Oh boy. Hang on. There might be a bee's nest in there. Let's see if I can see where they're going. Okay, well, I think they're just flies. Big black flies. They're sitting here on the wall, just inside the portal, because I think it's cool in here. Oh boy, there's a bunch of them. Hope they're flies. Oh man, that's creepy. Just a bunch of flies flying around. What do we got here? Some sort of steel cribbing. Somebody rigged up there. That's an interesting little thing. I can feel cool air coming out. So this must open to the surface somewhere else. There's some more little diggings up there. That looks like it doesn't go very far. But I don't see a seam they were working on. Let me get down in here a little bit. Out of the creepy fly zone. That was weird. But you can see here on the wall, it's layered marble. And unfortunately, I did not bring a torch with me. Sorry, I'm speaking British English now that I'm in Europe. I didn't bring a flashlight with me. And so I can't go any farther in and film at the same time. I don't think my flashlight and camera work at the same time. So let me get my flashlight on here and go do a little exploring and see if I can find some rocks. Well, I'm back in this portal, and it does go back about 100 feet. Kind of curves around and intersects a little seam that we'll take a look at when we get out on the surface again. But it's just so surreal for me to be in this mine in Spain that dates back to the Roman times. I mean, in the States, in the Western U.S., where I do a lot of my prospecting and mining, there aren't any mines that are over 200 years old. I mean, the West wasn't really settled much later than 200 years ago. Washington State, which is where I'm from, it hasn't even been a state for 150 years. So to be in workings like this that could be over 2,000 years old, it's really kind of brings you back to the real historical miners. I mean, Romans kind of came into a little history lesson here. Romans came into Spain about 200 BC, roughly. I mean, that's kind of what I've learned since I've been here in Spain, southern Spain. And all across southern Spain is very, very rich in silver, and a lot of the Roman silver came from southern Spain. And so you had these Roman miners, probably slaves, that infested these hills and were working underground, probably with candles on their head. How many of them died mining? How many of them died processing the material? A lot of the silver here is in a lead zinc sulfide. Most of these mountains are limestone, and so you have a skarn situation going on where you have a very, very similar to Cerro Gordo, where you have a rich, high-grade silver lead ore. And to process that, a lot of times what they did is they would refine the lead and silver out of the ore, which is a terrible, dirty process. Obviously, no PPE, no safety, no nothing. And then once they had the lead silver bullion refined, they would cupel the silver away from the lead, and they would then reprocess those cupels and recover the lead out of them, so they could get the silver out, which they used for coin, and then they recovered the lead, which they used for plates and cups and water pipes and all kinds of different stuff. So just having that knowledge that 2,000 years ago there were people working these hills is really, it's a whole different feeling for me as a miner compared to what I'm used to in the West. So it honestly makes you feel a little bit small. I mean, as a historical miner, most of the mines, like I said, in the West, you're 3 or 4 generations removed. Your great grandfather or great great grandfather founded them or worked them, whereas here you might be 100 generations removed, 200 generations removed. So it's a little bit grounding, to say the least. The portal we just went in was here, and it goes back about 75 feet and curves around to the left here to intersect this cut that they made. And then I actually saw some light coming from back over here, so I think there's a portal to the surface over here. But I didn't see anything really interesting as far as high-grade ore, nothing like pure galena. But let me get up here, see if there's some workings there. We'll see if we can hike up through this cut a little bit, and I'll get my hammer out, see if I can find some more. So we were down there. I walked my way up here, and there's these cool little cuts where they piled up rock along the wall and made these walkways back off to what I'm assuming was a portal, or is a portal. Looks like it might be caved at this point. Yeah, pretty well caved. But lots and lots of history. You think about the guy who made these walls. What was his name? What was he doing? What nationality was he? What language did he speak? How long did he live? Stuff like that. Just all these questions going through my head like that. Let's get up there, see what's up there in that cut. But here's a cool little foundation, something right up here. Another one. And then over there's our main cut. Well, we're kind of at the head of the open cut here. And there's another portal. Let's see what this looks like. That looks kind of like a stope there, doesn't it? Let's see what we got here. That's weird, those flies, man. That freaks me out. So yeah, here's a little stope they took. Looks like they backfilled over there. See some light coming from up in here. Yeah. I really want to find a good rock. Obviously I don't have a lot of capacity to take back a sample with me, but I want to find a real good high-grade rock, like the size of an egg. I can take it back with me and smelt down and see if we can get some silver out of. Let me see what I can find back in here. All right, well, there's the hole I came in. Here's another little spot of daylight. We're in I don't know how much my camera's gonna be able to pick up. We're in a pretty good sized stope. There's a little portal back over here that goes down somewhere. There's a little portal back over here that goes down somewhere. And I'm not gonna go too deep in these spots, just because, you know, no one knows where I am and I don't want to get trapped in here. So let's go out. We'll keep exploring on the surface. But these workings are cool, man. I mean, these are, you know, how many people worked in here? How many people died in here? How much silver came out of these things? So I'm standing pretty much right on the cut. And it goes pretty much straight as an arrow right down the hill like that. But then on the other side of the wash, I pointed out those piles earlier, it's over a little bit. And I think they did some open cutting back over here. So it looks like that wash may be a fault and has offset this seam maybe 100 or 200 feet. But they chased it all the way down and across the valley, it looks like. So let's keep going. Again, I'm on my mission for my one good rock. So I'm gonna start looking for one good rock to take back with me. We're pretty much on top of our cut now. And look what I found up here. Just a hole goes down, straight down, and 10 feet over there's an open cut. So I wonder whose idea it was to do all that work to make a hole right next to the open cut straight down. But there's, like I say, the cut ends pretty much right here. There's a huge amount of dump above the cut. So let's work our way above these dump piles and see what we come up with. But, you know, looking over here now at the fire burned, there's an old road right there. Cool old road. I wonder where that goes. A big flat spot kind of down there in the brush. Yeah, a lot of history here. How many footsteps am I walking in today? Well, here's a little rock I broke open, and, you know, sure enough, there it is. Galena. You can see it there. Kind of sparkling in the light. The density gives it away. I mean, this rock is a lot heavier than it should be. Well, we're up on top of that dump pile. And I found another one of these holes. It just goes straight down. Looks like it goes down maybe 40 or 50 feet. And then it's all caved in and there's a bunch of rock at the bottom. But, you know, I sure hope all this rock didn't have to come up through that little tiny hole, because that would have sucked. Hopefully there's some portal or something over here somewhere, but maybe all this rock came through that little hole. I don't know. Well, I just cracked this one open, and this one looks pretty good. It's got quite a bit of galena on it. I think it might be in a little seam, but I'll pick around. I'm finding that this brown weathering stuff, this stuff here, oftentimes is the galena. But, you know, it's real disseminated throughout the limestone. And there's little stringers and pockets and stuff, but what about this one? What does this one look like? So let's see what happens when I break this one. Let's see, it's just little tiny stringers. And obviously this is their dump pile, so it's not going to be loaded with good stuff. But I found a few little pieces. I'm throwing them in my bag. Going to take them back with me. But I think my next stop is going to be those ore bins that we saw earlier. You know, when in doubt, go to where they were putting their good ore and look around there. Well, we're back down here at the bottom underneath this first ore bin. I've got a couple more samples of ore I'll show you guys here at the end of the video. But I was noticing this is where they would pull the raw ore out of this big bin they built. And then I'm standing down here on this little sub-level, and all these rocks are half-inch minus. So I'm guessing they had a crusher set up on this little pedestal here. Let's see, what does it look like? They had some bolts in there. And here you go, a little chute maybe to pull the rock out. So they probably crushed it here and maybe had some ball mills or something down on this next level and fed the slurry on down the hill. I don't know. Again, it's so hard to tell. You don't know if they had flotation when this thing was going. That's how things are done now with silver lead ores. It's the flotation cells. Maybe that's what was going on down in these bunks, was flotation. I'm not sure. But this was definitely where the mill got, or the ore got processed, right out from under these big, huge ore bins they built. Man, that was a lot of work. Well, I'm out here at the bottom of the mill now. The mill's just over here. Some kind of little building here. The roof's caved in. But I found another portal back in here. Official geocache. Huh. Let's see what's back in here. This one looks a little more modern. There's those flies that I like. Ooh. Yeah, so this one's quite a bit more modern. They've got two portals essentially going off in two different directions. Looks like there might be a hole there, huh? When I walked in, I thought it was a fire ring. Looks like a hole. But let me flip my flashlight on and see what we got here. There's some interesting stuff out in the dump pile here I want to show you too when we get a second. Well, we're just outside of this portal I was just in. Over here they got a little dump pile. And then look over here what they got going. They've got a whole little pile of this rusty brown oxidized stuff. And I was going to take a sample. Looks like they've been saving it, but it doesn't weigh anything. There's no weight to it. I mean, it's like pumice. So I don't know what they were saving it for. Or maybe this is their junk pile and this is their good pile. I don't know. But some, super oxidized iron ore of some kind. But I'm going to leave that there. I got my galena in my pack. So we'll call it a day at the Roman silver mine here in Spain. And we'll get back and take a look at our rocks. And on another video, we'll try and get some Roman silver out of this stuff. All right, guys, we're back. I got my rocks here, and I'm going to get these shipped back to myself in the States. So in a future video, stay tuned, because I'm going to process these down, get the silver and lead out of them, and hopefully make something cool out of some Roman silver. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next video.